No DQ Galaxy, we are live with a recap of AEW Revolution 2024 from a sold-out Greensboro Coliseum in North Carolina. Sting's final match of his illustrious wrestling career going back to the mid-1980s. Almost a 40-year career for Sting. Marshall Leonard sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you. Says, Sting's final match was awesome. He deserves it. We will talk about Sting's final match. A lot to discuss. Another 4-hour AEW pay-per-view plus the 1-hour kickoff, the 0 hour, as they call it. Now, I will talk about the 0 hour very quickly here. It was your basic pre-show. You had the Bang Bang Scissor Gang teaming up together, the Acclaimed and Bullet Club Gold. They went up against Team Jeff Jarrett, which also consists of Satnam Singh and Jay Lethal. They also had Willie Mack and Private Party with them. It was a 12-man tag team match. Entertaining stuff here for what it was, a kickoff match. You had Karen Jarrett outside the ring interfering. Billy Gunn ended up hitting Satnam Singh with a Fameasser, and then Jay White pinned Willie Mack with a Blade Runner. And then after the match, White got on the microphone and hyped up the rest of the show. Kind of unfortunate that Jay White was on the kickoff here, but hey, at least he got a win, right? Shout out to Hamp Connell and Caleb Jacobs. They sent in super chats. Now, I will address those super chats at the end since they are related to the main event segment. So, Hamp, Caleb, I will get to your super chats. Stay tuned for the end. Let's get to the second match. Not much to say about it. Tag team match. Julia Hart and Sky Blue against Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. Could have been on a random episode of AEW Collision. Willow got the win. She pinned Sky Blue after hitting the pounce and then a doctor bomb. Basic stuff here. Now, let's get to the main card, AEW Revolution 2024. We opened up with Christian Cage versus Daniel Garcia. It was a good opening match. It served its purpose. No Adam Copeland. He did not show up. You had Christian using his typical shady tactics, thumb to the eye, and then he started taunting Garcia. Then we had the outside interference from Nick Wayne. He tried to get involved. Garcia decided to fight dirty back. He took Christian's turtleneck shirt, put it over his head, and then Killswitch interfered. Killswitch chokeslammed Garcia while the referee was distracted. And then Daddy Magic ran down. Daddy Magic managed to fight Killswitch to the back. So it was back to even somewhat. You still had Nick Wayne out there. And as it turns out, Nick Wayne ended up being the difference maker. Nick Wayne took a cheap shot at Garcia, and then Christian hit the kill switch and got the 1-2-3 victory. I was a little surprised that there was no title change just because AEW has been so high on Daniel Garcia, trying to make something out of him. And like I mentioned on the predictions video we did for Revolution, I don't think the Adam Copeland Christian blow-off match needs to be for a championship. Like, they could have done something here, had Adam Copeland show up, but nope, no Adam Copeland. Christian retains. Match was fine for being the opening match. Next up, we had Bryan Danielson versus Eddie Kingston for the Continental Crown Championship, and the stipulation was that if Kingston won, Bryan would have to shake his hand after the match. This was a really good match with these guys. I thought it was predictable in the sense that Bryan pinned Kingston clean on Dynamite this past Wednesday. Kind of made it obvious how this was going, and, the stipulation, Kingston would have to shake Bryan's hand. Kingston ended up chopping the ring post by mistake, and Bryan capitalized on that as only Bryan Danielson can. He targeted that hand of Kingston, and Kingston further hurt his hand when he was going for the spinning back fist, and then Bryan hit the running knee. Kingston kicked out of that, and they exchanged a lot of suplexes. Both guys were down. The crowd gave them a standing ovation. They got up, exchanged some strikes, and then Kingston managed to counter another running knee strike. He powerbombed Bryan and got the 1-2-3 victory. Bryan, after the match was over, went for the handshake, and there was some tension, but Kingston did shake Bryan's hand. They had that moment of respect, and like I said, very good match here. Predictable, but strong match with these guys. Really good stuff. Next up, we had the 8-man All-Star Scramble match, with the winner getting a future AEW Championship match. This was an entertaining undercard match. They took advantage of the Meat Madness. That was supposed to be the match at first. It was going to be a Meat Madness match, March Madness. And at one point, you had the 4 bigger guys in the ring, and they were attacking each other. Crowd was chanting meat, yelling out meat every time there was a move. And then Jericho came in, and then you had the 4 smaller guys going at it for a while. Hook even got into the mix as all of them started doing dives to the outside. Hook did one as well. And it was a spectacle. You had everybody in the mix. Fun match here. In the end, Wardlow did pin Darius Martin to get the 1-2-3 victory. D. Martin 5th sent in a $2 super chat, says, just as a reminder, this Magnus isn't Nick Aldis. Yes, there is a Magnus who wrestles for CMLL. He was part of this match too. But since Nick Aldis dropped that name a long time ago, I guess there's no issue over that name. But yes, Magnus, not Nick Aldis, for those of you wondering. Shout out to good old JM Jeff Meacham. And by the way, some people do ask me, I even got a person contacting me a few days ago asking about possibly being on a recap stream. The reason I do these videos solo is because of the time. We're into Monday morning here. It is past midnight. And with a second person on, it's going to be a much longer video. So I just prefer to do solo videos for the pay-per-view recaps. For anybody wondering why it's just me solo on these recaps, that's why. Doing these videos late, don't want to stretch it out more than it needs to be. But on the No DQ review, we might be talking more about it. We'll see what Virtue wants to do. But typically for the pay-per-views, we go into more detailed talk on the No DQ review. So if you are watching this for the first time and you want more insight, more opinions, tune into the No DQ review, because we do have the panel, 4 or 5 people talking about various topics. subscribe. If you're watching this on Facebook or Twitter, go to nodq.com/YouTube. That goes directly to the YouTube page. Jeff, get your spot in for the No DQ review Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, because I'm sure we'll talk about Sting's retirement. Big event here. Sting going out on his own terms. Now, we had Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong. Very good match here with these guys, and this was what it needed to be. I mean, Orange Cassidy's had a very good run as international champion, but in order for the Undisputed Kingdom to have any kind of credibility, I think you needed to get the title off of Orange Cassidy and try and push Roderick Strong. By the way, Adam Cole did appear for Wardlow's entrance, so he did make a cameo on this show. He's still recovering from injury. And this match was very good. Strong was going after Cassidy's ribs. Cassidy had his ribs taped up, and at one point they were both on the top, and Strong gave Cassidy a gut-wrench powerbomb in the corner, and the crowd was chanting, "Holy shit." Cassidy made a comeback, though. He had a Panama Sunrise. Strong kicked out of that. And then Cassidy delivered an orange punch, followed by the beach break, but Strong was able to get his foot on the rope, and then Strong eventually got the win with the end of Heartache, picked up the victory to become the new international champion. And after the match was over, we had a surprise. We had the return of Kyle O'Reilly, who has been gone since the summer of 2022. Out of action for a very long time, but he's back. It's crazy because the last time he was wrestling in AEW, CM Punk was still around. CM Punk was not only the world champion, but this was before the All Out pay-per-view and the backstage fight with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. That's how long Kyle O'Reilly's been out of action. He's back. He hugged his longtime friend Roderick Strong, but did not commit to joining the group. They offered him the t-shirt. He just left the ring. So we're going to have to see what happens with him in the future. Next up, we had FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler going up against the Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley and Claudio. Another really good match with these guys. Pay-per-view quality match. Back and forth, dueling chants from the fans. Very evenly matched. And then Harwood got busted open. He was bleeding. Surprisingly, not Moxley. It was just Dax bleeding in this one. And BCC actually paid tribute to the Road Warriors. They came out wearing the Legion of Doom / Road Warriors spiked shoulder pads. You know, Road Warriors had a history in the NWA. They wrestled in the Greensboro Coliseum. So it was a nice little tribute to them. Lots of big moves, pins being broken up. At one point, they even busted out the Doomsday device. Claudio came off the top with an uppercut. So they did the LOD Doomsday device with the Cesaro spin to it, or Claudio spin, excuse me. And everybody was down. The crowd was chanting AEW. FTR hit the Shatter Machine to Moxley, but Claudio pulled Harwood out of the ring. And then Moxley hit the Death Rider, put a choke on Harwood. Wheeler tried to make the save, but he got taken out by Claudio. And Wheeler unable to help out his partner. Can't even say his name. Harwood passed out, and BCC got the win. I was almost going to say Wardlow instead of Harwood. BCC got the win. I'm not really surprised here by this. I figured Moxley and Claudio would get the win. We'll see what happens next with FTR. Maybe they go for the tag team titles. More on that in a little bit. And we do have a court case that Cash Wheeler has to take care of. So, yeah, I figured the BCC would win this one. Next up, we had Toni Storm versus Deonna Purrazzo, which, unfortunately for them, they were put in a very bad spot here. Like, they had to follow the FTR BCC match. And not only that, but fans were anticipating the big matches. So this was kind of the bathroom break match, unfortunately for them. Wasn't a bad match or anything. I thought it was a solid match. But yeah, it was like a Dynamite TV match almost. Like maybe a small step above that. Like, it was the weakest match of the show, but I still don't consider it to be a bad match or anything. But, you have Luther out there, and they did a lot of mat wrestling, a lot of submissions. And then at one point, Toni got knocked off the apron. Luther caught her, and then Deonna came off the top with a crossbody onto both of them on the outside, which I think we've seen that spot with Luther before. So nothing really new here before that we haven't seen before. And by the way, the one thing we didn't see before, which I thought was pretty creative, Mariah May made an entrance before Toni, and she came out to Toni's old music with her old attire, and for a split second, like, people thought it was Toni Storm reverting back to her old gimmick. So I liked that. I thought that was creative, and Mariah May ultimately was the difference maker again. She interfered when the referee was distracted, and then Toni pinned Deonna with a pile driver. So Toni Storm still champion. No surprise here. I mean, with Mercedes Moné coming in, figured Toni would hold on to the title for now. Next up, we had Will by God Ospreay, as Don Callis calls him, going up against Konosuke Takeshita. Don Callis on commentary. I'm almost at a loss for words with this match. So it was insane. They did so many moves in this match. Like, I could not really keep up with it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Like, it's 100 miles an hour, big move, hard hitting, very fast paced. I mean, it was a spectacle. It is what it is. The crowd absolutely loves Ospreay. AEW has their next big star in Ospreay. He is on fire right now, whether you love the guy or you don't like his style. The crowds go crazy for this guy. Like, he had a legitimate superstar presence when he came out there. So it was crazy. Like, they were doing so many things in this match. And you had lots of kickouts at one in the beginning, doing the dives over the top, lots of strikes back and forth. And they were in the corner, and like Takeshita gave him a brain buster in the corner, and Ospreay actually had some bruising on his lower back. Like, it was brutal. Like, these guys were hitting hard. There's no way that they're not going to feel this one in the morning. But yeah, absolutely wild match with these guys. Can't even really describe it well. Like, just so many things happening. It's going to be one of those matches that gets the the 6-star rating, just because there's so many things. And, as far as the athleticism goes, like there's few guys that can do what these guys do. Will Ospreay is definitely in a class of his own when it comes to the athletic ability and how much he can do in a 20-minute match. And, they even had a kick out at one towards the end, and the crowd just exploded. They were chanting "Fight Forever," and Ospreay even busted out a Styles Clash. Takeshita kicked out of that, and Takeshita did the Blue Thunder Bomb, which was pretty crazy, like how they got to the move. But of course, Blue Thunder Bomb, whether it's Sami Zayn or Takeshita, it doesn't get the job done. And then Ospreay finally, after like a lot of back and forth here, crazy moves, Ospreay finally won. He had a Tiger Driver 91 and then hit the Hidden Blade, got the 1-2-3 victory. And then after the match, Kyle Fletcher came out there, had a stare down with Ospreay, and then they hugged. They have their history together, but they are going to be competing against each other on this coming Wednesday's Dynamite. By the way, Dynamite has a new logo, and also they announced a new pay-per-view for April 21st in St. Louis, Missouri. It's going to be called Dynasty. But yeah, Ospreay, he's on fire right now, and he is somebody that AEW definitely needs. Like, they need some fresh blood. They need a new guy that they can push as the face of the company, and he's going to be their guy. I think that he's going to be the next world champion. If I had to make a bold prediction, with all due respect to the other guys on the roster, like, you got Wembley Stadium coming up. Would not shock me if Ospreay wins the title at All In this year. I mean, that seems to be a pretty safe prediction at this point. I mean, I think they would be crazy not to go with that at this point, considering the momentum that he has. Now, this is crazy too. Like, the match that had to follow this was the world title match. Samoa Joe versus Hangman Adam Page versus Swerve Strickland. They had to follow Ospreay's match, and you could tell the crowd wanted to be into this, but they were burned out. I mean, after that match with Ospreay, like, can you blame them? They were a bit tired, but they did get into it, and these guys were doing their best to tell a story here with this match. The idea was that Joe was taking it to both guys, and they had to work together a little bit to get Joe out of the equation. Like, they double power bombed him out of the corner, but they still have their bad blood. So Swerve and Page were going at it for a while, and at one point, Page grabbed the world championship and he used it as a weapon. He hit Swerve with it. This was a triple threat, so no DQ in this match. And Page kept taking out the referees. Anytime Swerve was about to win, Page would attack a referee. You had a second referee come out there, and then another referee after that. I mean, it was Page just breaking all the rules, doing everything possible to prevent Swerve from winning the title. And Swerve managed to hit the JML driver on Page, but then Joe took Swerve out of the ring, put Page in the coquina clutch, and Page tapped out. So Swerve came this close to winning the title, but to no avail. Samoa Joe, still your world champion. It was a very good match, but it was in a tough spot on this show, following Ospreay's match and then fans trying to save their energy for the main event with Sting. Like, it struggled a little bit, but Joe got a good win here. And it was it was overbooked too, like some of the recent AEW World Title pay-per-view matches with all the refs being attacked and, all the shenanigans and everything. But it was entertaining. It was entertaining for what it was. Joe gets the win. And I mentioned earlier, with all due respect to the other people on the roster, like, I feel like Joe should stay champion until Wembley and have Ospreay win the title. Now, maybe Swerve will get it. I mean, we do have several more pay-per-views before Wembley. AEW keeps adding shows to the schedule, and maybe Swerve wins it at the next pay-per-view, and then Swerve holds on to it until Wembley. But part of me thinks that they should have Joe keep the title until Wembley and have Ospreay beat him in Wembley. But maybe it'll be Swerve. We'll see. All right, guys, let's talk about the main event of the evening. Sting and Darby Allin versus the Young Bucks, the EVP Bucks, for the tag team titles. Win, lose, or draw, Sting's final match. The man who sold the tickets for this show, 16,000 plus fans, one of AEW's biggest crowds ever. I mean, it's right up there, maybe fifth or sixth largest crowd in the history of the company. I mean, the first Arthur Ashe Stadium show, obviously Wembley Stadium, I think Forbidden Door, United Center, there were several shows that had over 16,000 fans, but this was definitely up there among the highest attended shows in the history of the company. And that was due for Sting. That was due to Sting. I don't think they would have sold nearly as many tickets, because I think a lot of fans traveled for this one. Like, this was a show where people came from all sorts of different areas and regions to attend. Now, for the entrances, so we had Ricky Steamboat out there as the special guest timekeeper. Ric Flair came out there to be part of the match. And we had several legends at ringside, including Magnum TA. We had a lengthy video package for Sting. Thank you, Sting chants. And it was hyped up as the final showtime. And then for Sting's entrance to the ring, he came out there with his sons. His sons were dressed up as the Surfer Sting from 1990, Great American Bash, and then the Wolfpack Sting. Interesting choices. Classic Sting from WCW, two different versions of Sting from WCW. And then Sting came out like he did at All In. He came out there with the Seek and Destroy song from Metallica. He used it during his WCW run in like 99 and 2000. And the fight went right to the outside. And Sting's sons were also involved. So for the first couple minutes, it was 4-on-2. Sting's sons were there doing moves, doing the Stinger splashes. And then Darby came off the top of the coffin, dropped to the Bucks. And then Sting and company pulled out some glass panels from under the ring. Glass panels, as Jungle Boy might say, real glass. They fought into the crowd. And at this point, when they were on the stage, the tide turned. Nicholas Jackson gave Darby a Falcon Arrow through the tables below. And then on the other side, Matthew gave Sting a suplex off the stage through the tables. Sting, 64 years old, taking a suplex off the stage through two tables. Dude is nuts, but we already knew that. And speaking of crazy, you want to talk about crazy? Let's talk about Darby Allin. Darby Allin tried to fight off both of the Bucks, and he was doing well for a while. Then he climbed the ladder that was set up in the ring. He was on top of the ladder. He went for a swanton bomb, presumably to put Nicholas Jackson through the glass panel that was laid out below on a stack of chairs. But Matthew pulled Nicholas to safety, and Darby did this swanton bomb and put himself through the glass panel. This was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen on any wrestling show, because it wasn't like the thumbtacks. You know, with the thumbtacks, you get like the little puncture wounds. These were massive puncture wounds. Like, he just started opening up, like spots of blood covering his entire body. It was grotesque. Like, this made Mick Foley look tame from back in the day, with the exception of Hell in a Cell. But for most of Mick Foley's career, like, I don't even think Foley took this kind of punishment, because at least Foley would wear a shirt to protect himself a little bit. Not Darby. This was crazy. This was absolutely nuts. Darby was out of the equation, and then the Bucks had Sting all by themselves, and Sting tried to fight them off as best he could, and he was doing good for a while, but then he climbed up a ladder, and he got thrown off the ladder, put through a table. However, Sting popped right back up. He was no-selling. Superman comeback here. He hit Matthew with a Scorpion Death Drop. Or no, excuse me. Sting got put through the glass panel. So Sting took a glass panel bump, not as brutal as Darby's, but it's still glass. Sting was wearing a shirt, but he's 64 years old. So it was still crazy. And then Matthew hit a Scorpion Death Drop on Sting. Sting kicked out of that, and then Nicholas grabbed the tag team title. He was going to use it. Ricky Steamboat, who was the timekeeper, he stopped Nicholas, but then Nicholas attacked Steamboat. Ric Flair got into the ring. Ric Flair was trying to shield Sting, his longtime friend. He got taken out with dueling super kicks. And then the Bucks hit the EVP trigger. Sting kicked out of that. They hit him with the belt. He kicked out. They hit him with dueling super kicks. He no-sold it. They hit the EVP trigger. Sting kicked out of that. Like, Sting just kept kicking out. Everything they did, they could not keep him down. And then they hit another one. And Sting not only kicked out, but he started laughing. And the Bucks went for the Tony Khan driver to try to finally finish him off. But then Darby made the save, knocked Nicholas off the top rope, through a table, and then Sting hit a Scorpion Death Drop to Matthew. Matthew kicked out, and then Darby hit Matthew with a coffin drop. Sting then applied the Scorpion Deathlock, and Matthew finally, no place to go. Nicholas was taken out. Matthew tapped out. Sting got the victory in his final match, beating the Young Bucks. 64-year-old Sting pulled off the win somehow. We got the happy ending. Pyro, confetti, big celebration. And then afterwards, Sting cut a promo. He thanked the city of Greensboro, North Carolina. He said it was a night he will never forget. And he kept talking, but unfortunately, they ran out of time. This is the problem with a 4-hour pay-per-view. They ran out of time, and this was a bit of a negative here, that they ended the show without Sting being able to finish his speech. And I was also a little disappointed that we didn't get to see Lex Luger. I was hoping maybe Luger would show up and embrace Sting, but beyond that, like, really great ending to Sting's career. You had fans crying in the crowd. it was excellent. It was a real nice fitting end to Sting's career. And I'm just happy he's okay. I'm happy that Darby is okay after what he went through. I mean, he was bleeding all over the place, but he was okay. I mean, he was standing. They both lived the match. So that is definitely a sigh of relief that they're okay, but still, I mean, that match was insane. Hamp Connell sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. I appreciate it. Says, just that match from the entrance to the finish was well worth the $50. What's your favorite Sting match and moment? You can answer later if you want. Favorite matches, you know, the Ric Flair Great American Bash when Sting won the title. Pretty much any Sting versus Ric Flair match. Sting versus Lex Luger from Super Brawl 2. All of the NWO stuff right from when the fake Sting first appeared and Sting cut that promo. The only thing that's for sure about Sting is nothing's for sure. Becoming the Crow Sting. And then the whole TNA run, you know, doing the Joker Sting stuff. I mean, he had so many great moments. Beating DDP for the world title on Nitro was another great one. You know, so many memorable moments from Sting. Caleb Jacobs sent in a $4.39 super chat. Thank you for that, Caleb. I appreciate it. It says, going out undefeated as a champion. I love it. Yeah, I think it was the right call. The crowd was chanting F you Young Bucks during the match. Like, if the Bucks won, I feel like fans would have been so unhappy. You gave the fans a happy ending here. The Bucks will survive. They'll probably do a tournament. Wouldn't shock me. Tony Khan loves his tournaments. The tag titles will be okay. I don't see any problem with the titles being vacated in this situation. Yeah, I thought it was absolutely the right call for Sting to get the win. You know, you want to give him that moment, and yeah, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and the whole show was great. I think it was one of AEW's best pay-per-views. I give it an A. Again, I feel like it's just short of an A+ because I think the shows are still too long and they run too late. But it was an excellent pay-per-view. And like Hamp said, I think Sting's match alone was worth the $50. I do believe some people had some issues, though, with Bleacher Report. Apparently, a lot of people lost access to their feed. I had no problems, thankfully, but I believe they had some issues with some users for like the first hour of the show, and they had to offer it on like Fight TV in the United States, which they usually don't do. So there were some issues with that. Yeah, I just think there's too much on the show. I feel like WWE and AEW need to both adjust a little bit. I like that WWE has breaks between the matches. Sometimes I think it maybe is a little too much, but I like a little time to breathe, use the bathroom, get something to eat. With AEW, they try to cram 10 matches in 4 hours, and they want to give the matches time. So they sacrifice like video packages. They're very short. And basically there's little break period. You know, it's just match, you know, short video packages. And I think AEW could benefit from maybe cutting out a few matches, have a little bit more breathing time between the matches, but don't go overboard like WWE. I think WWE overdoes it with the video packages and advertisements and such. Hamp Connell sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. I appreciate it. Says, the match with DDP was great, but fun fact, When he lost it 2 hours later, that made me almost stop watching WCW. I was so pissed I screamed. The thing is, Hamp, you're not the only one. Like, unfortunately, that booking decision turned off a lot of people. Like, a lot of people were getting turned off of WCW at that period. That was when things really started to go downhill. So, you know, they did a lot of things to piss off their audience. And, yeah, they started going downhill. Pay-per-view numbers, attendance, TV ratings, everything across the board was going down around that period. So yeah, great show. Definitely worth the money as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, the stunts were crazy, but hey, it's a pay-per-view. So better to do this stuff on a pay-per-view when people are paying $50 than doing it on a random Dynamite. So they went all out for Sting's match. Will Ospreay went all out. He's probably the future top star of the company. So, you know, hopefully he doesn't break down in a couple of years. I mean, look at Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega was going hard and, you know, he's been injured. He's not been able to go at the level that he used to. So, you know, Will Ospreay, he's got to be smart. You know, he's trying to come in, go hard, but, you know, 3-4 years from now, he might start feeling the consequences. And same thing with Darby. You know, Darby's doing all this crazy stuff. How's his body going to be in 5 years? So we appreciate what they do and the efforts and the athleticism, but I do worry that these guys are going to burn themselves out very quickly. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Tell a friend. Spread the word about NoDQ.com. Have a great week, everyone. Take care. Buy a shirt, NoDQ.com/merch if you enjoyed the video. Say yes to NoDQ.com, and I will see you all next time.